didn't want to make this video because I don't want to harsh the vibe of a new metagame, but I'm pretty sure Shou-Lao is still really messed up. This is the list that I've been playing, and I tried really hard to have a gameplay video out today that was not going to be about Shou-Lao, but I keep coming back to it because it keeps succeeding. This is, in my opinion, the early frontrunner for the deck that defines the upcoming metagame. It is a deck that you can customize with various pieces of tech if you need to beat most of the stuff you want to beat. It has an incredibly powerful A game, and while it is the kind of A game that can get got by things like Cosmic Ghost Rider, it is still just a powerful enough deck in terms of the point output it plays and how good the cards you play are actually going to be, that even if you're not full comboing with your Shoucasta lines on the back end, you are still going to be able to just do a lot of output. Now, one of the things you'll notice as you play a deck like this is that you can be greedy with it, but you don't need to. You can do things like activate an Omega Sentinel early just to make sure you're getting some value out of it if you're afraid your opponents are going to CGR you. You can get that value earlier in the game and still win it late because you simply have so much power in your combo that you can kind of do a lot of things and still have them be okay. Baseline, what you're trying to do is set up a variety of Shoucasta and or Shou-Lao endgames. You have Shoucasta Omega Sentinel, then Prodigy the Shoucasta. You are always going to want to Prodigy Shoucasta if you have the option to do that, barring very specific scenarios where you are afraid of very specific counterplay or need to Prodigy something else and have the ability to do so. Largely, the way this deck tends to play out is with those Shoucasta combos and those Shou-Lao combos. So yes, Shoucasta Omega Sentinel Prodigy, but also just, you know, get a Shoucasta down there, get a Maverick down there, play a Scarlet Spider, and it's like, okay, well, I can use one proc of the Maverick on the Scarlet Spider, send it up to 7. Even though I haven't really been playing off curve, at least on the Shoucasta turn, which is your 3, you're willing to give that up because now you're getting 2 Scarlet Spider activations. And it's just like the power of that being compounded with the fact that Maverick and Spider are elite Shou-Lao targets means that you basically get to pick and choose whether or not you want to play as a mid-range deck or a full-on absolute ridiculous combo deck depending on matchup. And that means that against the counterplay that you're likely to see, you can choose to respect it and play a little bit more mid-rangey like a normal Shou-Lao deck. Don't count on the Shoucasta combo, just put a Maverick in the back line and then use a Shou-Lao on it and play a Kitty Pryde. You can out mid-range the decks that are interacting with you like that. Or against the deck that isn't going to interact with you in those ways, you can have the most over-the-top possible end game of any Shou-Lao list. This deck can simply do more points than other Shou-Lao lists. It is very similar to the versions of Shou-Lao that we're hybridizing with ongoing, which I still think are pretty compelling as a second way to use Maverick, but they are much weaker in the face of things like CGR. Even though this deck is like, oh, it's a CGR deck, we just have more Shou-Lao targets in the deck that make our Maverick lines better, that make our Scarlet Spider lines better, that allows this deck to play through the counterplay a little bit more reliably. And when the counterplay isn't there, it goes monstrously tall. Like many alternate builds of Shou-Lao, this list was cooked up by Honifer. I'm playing, I believe, his exact 12. There's been a little bit of debate over whether Merlin or Awesome Andy is better. I am pretty clearly on the side of Merlin, not just because of his ability to fuel your Shou-Lao game plan and provide 1 costs when you don't have Kitty Pryde, but also because it's a natural out to Limbo, which I find particularly valuable, and other locations that can be problematic for you. Kitty Pryde is arguably the most important 1-cost card in any Shou-Lao deck because half the time we're not going to be able to Shou-Lao onto a Scarlet Spider because maybe we haven't drawn the Scarlet Spider, maybe our curve doesn't work out for playing the Scarlet Spider, but we will be able to Shou-Lao onto a Maverick, which requires a 1-cost card. Maverick, of course, being cheaper, also an easier card to include in a lot of Shou-Lao decks. Kitty Pryde is that 1-cost card. You need a 1-cost card that is repeatably going to do the Merlin job and also the job of carrying a Shou-Lao Maverick buff. That is what Kitty Pryde can do. That is what Kitty Pryde does do. Absolutely a stud here. Spider Ham is a fairly reasonable, disruptive piece. Really, he's just here to be another one-drop that has as much impact on the game as it possibly can. Getting rid of one individual card in your opponent's deck is not the world's most meaningful thing, but it is meaningful enough for a one-cost card that it frankly makes me wonder how much longer a card like this can exist, because that's kind of a lot for a one cost to be doing. Just fundamentally, it is kind of the highest impact one cost card, or it has the highest ceiling among one cost cards that you can reasonably play. And it's a very not fun ceiling for your opponent to get hit by. Chavez, I think, is largely replaceable. I think Iceman would be a very, very fine thing to include instead. This is a card that is mostly there because you have a couple of things that really benefit from boosts, but it's not that many cards in the deck. Like, you're really mostly looking to get this on Maverick and on Scarlet Spider, and if you can do that, that's awesome. It's like a semi-alt win con, but I think something like Iceman would be just as viable in terms of being, like, meaningfully disruptive instead of building your game plan, but your proactive game plan is so powerful that sometimes the only thing that's going to stop you is someone doing something ridiculous. Makes me lean a little bit towards Iceman, but there are enough inbuilt synergies for America Chavez that I think she's a very reasonable call as well. Agony is the exact same thing as America Chavez, except you can actually target Agony's buff, which makes her, I don't know, infinitely better. Like, just a much better card at actually synergizing and giving the cards you want 3 power, the 3 additional power. Obviously, your goal is to launder Agony through a Maverick into a Scarlet Spider, into something else that is going to be a second copy of Scarlet Spider. Maybe that Scarlet Spider gets buffed. You do have to be a little bit aware of Shang-Chi. Like, Agony and Maverick is 5. Maverick and Scarlet Spider on 5 is 10. That is a thing you'll have to think about. But largely, it's definitely not enough to make her anything but an absolutely monstrously powerful card in this list. Surge is, I think, probably, if you wanted to flex this card out, a card you could flex out. I've largely found her to be mostly good. Largely, again, though, this is because you are a deck that has a lot of things that you really like seeing cost 0, a lot of 1 costs in the deck, and you really like seeing have more power. So Surge is just your way of, like, you know, this card is probably card number 12 in here. I get it. But she just does a lot of work, and she works with both of the things this deck wants to do, because this deck ideally wants to curve out in ways that are not particularly specifically conducive to Shou-Lao, because you really want to play Shoucasta on 3, you want to play something else on 4, and then you maybe want to Prodigy the Shoucasta or things of that nature, right? So like you go Shoucasta, you play an Omega Sentinel on 4, you're not really building for a Shou-Lao, but what Surge allows you to do is make some of those plays while building for a Shou-Lao. The same thing, like, imagine you get a 0-cost Kitty Pryde, right? Like, that's kind of the dream. Get that 0-cost Kitty Pryde, suddenly you're playing on curve 3, 4, 5 the way you normally would, except you have the Shou-Lao procs happening as well. That kind of stuff matters, but also discounts on those cards matter because you're trying to build an engine at a discount effectively, and Surge is one of the best cards in the game at allowing you to assemble your things while still Shou-Laoing in the background. Merlin's just great. Like, this is just a great card in every Shou-Lao list. Built-in location control, built-in ability to put 1-drops in your hand. This list needs that a little less because it is a little less reliant on Shou-Lao than most Shou-Lao lists are, but it is still a welcome addition. Merlin is just a great card generally, and being able to be one of the Merlin decks again, instead of having to be a Kitty Pryde deck because of being a Maverick splash, like, that's one of the things that this deck has over other Shou-Lao hybrids, is that as a Shou-Lao hybrid, it is a lot easier to be just a Maverick deck. And if you are just a Maverick deck, you don't want to play Merlin because his spells can't carry a Maverick buff. So you have to play Kitty Pryde instead. You have to, or not instead, but you have to play Kitty Pryde. You have to play Kate Bishop. You need things that are actually going to carry a Maverick buff when played with Shou-Lao on the final turn of the game. That costs you because this is a better card than Kate Bishop. And so being a deck that is also a Scarlet Spider deck, in addition to being a Maverick deck, frees you up to get this guy back in. Now, don't let me trick you here. Maverick is still amazing. He's just not necessarily your preferred guy. There are some really cool things you can do with Maverick Shoucasta in terms of like timing a buff onto one thing, then activating Shoucasta to get a second buff onto something else. There's stuff you can do there, but mostly you're not gonna do a lot of that stuff because he's not gonna be all that big a lot of the time. So mostly what's happening is you're gonna use a Maverick, it's gonna be in your Shoucasta lane, and then you're gonna put 2 points on a Scarlet Spider. It's like, that's gonna be fine. And then after you activate the Shoucasta, you'll put 2 points somewhere else, but it won't feel particularly meaningful. Largely, you have enough other payoffs in the deck that like Maverick doesn't have to do Shou-Lao duty. When he is doing Shou-Lao duty, and that will happen sometimes, you will have to actually think about stuff like that though, because it's like, okay, I'm going to Shou-Lao onto the Maverick and then do all my Shoucasta stuff so that I get double procs of my giant Maverick onto something else. And then every time you do that, you'll be like, did I need the double proc? And it'll be like, no. But like, it is a thing you can do. Shoucasta is the glue to your backup plan / engine. What's good about Shoucasta is that she frees this deck up compared to like other hybrids to be a little bit heavier, right? Like one of your biggest concerns when you're playing a deck like this is like you're concerned with gambit stuff, right? And it's like, okay, if I'm super concerned with getting gambited, I can just start firing off my Shoucasta stuff early because those decks do not have a ton of power, right? Like those decks, largely, you're playing a Gambit deck, they're playing a fair game plan most of the time. And so like you don't have to commit to your final turn, I'm going to activate all this stuff, and if they blow up the Shoucasta with the Gambit, they're just going to get me. Like what you can do is you can play a Shoucasta, and then you can play an Omega Sentinel, activate the Shoucasta, activate the Omega Sentinel, and it's like, yeah, blow my stuff up. I don't care. We're both playing a fair game here, and then I'm gonna play a Scarlet Spider. You know, like that kind of stuff. You don't have to save everything for that final turn, especially if you're not gonna have priority. Now, you can. It's a very viable thing. What you're really afraid of in those matchups is not the Gambit on 6, it's the Gambit trigger on 5. That's the thing you're afraid of. That's the thing you're going to have to like really play around there, because the Gambit on 6, you're fine. You already activated all your cards. You're good. The Gambit on 5, that's going to blow up some of your setup. So that's the thing you're going to have to be like proactively looking out for. And Shoucasta obviously is a powerful card, but I think really a lot of what she brings to this list is like, I can play multiple 4-drops and not feel stupid about doing that in my Shou-Lao deck because Shoucasta will justify me doing that. Prodigy, just, you know, an absolute all-star role player, I guess I would say. Just think of Prodigy as Jason Tatum, just good at everything, just really good at everything, constantly filling holes. Even when he's not scoring, he's contributing, right? So I've had games where my Prodigy copies a Shoucasta, and that allows me to do like exponential garbage with my Omega Sentinel, right? For those who are unaware, when there's a Shoucasta in the Shoucasta lane, that allows Shoucastas to happen way more. It is X4 of whatever else you have in the lane that isn't activate. That's awesome, right? You are super into that. However, you don't need to do that. Sometimes it's just totally fine to play a smaller deck, right? Like a lot of what this deck is you are a deck that has an extremely fragile, high leverage combo setup, but also a deck that doesn't need to do that. So if you are forced by the matchup into being a high combo deck, like basically playing like you are an Invisible Woman First Steps deck, where it's like, if anything happens to this lane, I am totally screwed and I instantly die. But if nothing happens to this lane, I make 1,000,000 points, right? That's what a lot of your Shoucasta games play like. But you don't have to be like that. Prodigy can just like copy a Scarlet Spider and be like an 8.3 power guy, right? Like, Prodigy can copy a Maverick. If Prodigy copies a card that has already been used, it still gets the actual activate. So if you say Agony Maverick, put that buff on a Prodigy that copies the Maverick, well, that Prodigy is going to be able to activate as a Maverick for 9. And it's like, oh, that's nice too. Like, he just does a lot of really good stuff. A real elite role player kind of thing here. Like the elitist role player of all time. He's just good at everything. Omega Sentinel is a card I probably need to figure out how to get a variant for, because she is just a very solid piece here. Obviously, the worst of your activate payoffs, right? You are a Shou-Lao deck. Shou-Lao works way better with Maverick and with Scarlet Spider than he does with Omega Sentinel. But you have to just take that, because this is the card that allows you to actually meaningfully have a backup plan. If you go for a Shoucasta into an Omega Sentinel, into a Prodigy on the Shoucasta, you are minus 35ing your opponent's board. Minus 35 is quite a good thing to do. That's a powerful outcome for you. And that's just a good enough thing to have her in the deck and allow that to happen. Now, again, you talk about counterplay, right? Sometimes you're activating it early, but like a lot of the time, the worst you're getting out of this is like a 410 that you're pretty okay with anyway. And that sort of flexibility, which I've talked about a lot in this video, it's the flexibility to either be a combo deck or play a smaller game plan to avoid counterplay. And nobody ever expects you to not be a combo deck, so you can really take them aback when you actually use this card just to do good things, and then they stare at their Cosmic Ghost Rider and they're like, oh, I was going to win 8 with this, and now I'm not. Scarlet Spider is the main overlap, along with Maverick, between a Shou-Lao deck and a Shoucasta deck. Obviously, the nutty nut draw is to have multiple Shoucastas on multiple Scarlet Spiders that have somehow also been buffed with Shou-Lao. I have never done that. Like, the best I'll get is a Shoucasta Scarlet Spider with a Shou-Lao buff. That's about as good as I get. But you can, in theory, dream of that magical Christmas land. That said, I mean, again, you know, Scarlet Spider Shou-Lao on its own, pretty high ceiling. Double that Scarlet Spider, even higher ceiling. You're very happy with the interaction between Shoucasta, Scarlet Spider, and Shou-Lao. The fact that it's also a great buff recipient, the sort of buff sub-theme in this deck with America Chavez and Agony, and of course Maverick, and of course this card right here. A lot of pieces that just come together. Shou-Lao the Undying, I mean, we've been talking about a metagame split between Gambit, Shou-Lao, and Star-Lord. Gambit just got nerfed. Star-Lord just got nerfed. Shou-Lao was losing to those two decks. I think it is very possible that Shou-Lao in some form, and I would place my bet on this form, ends up becoming the deck in the near future. This feels like a very powerful thing to do that has a ton of flexibility, a ton of play. And while I do think it is uniquely vulnerable to things like Cosmic Ghost Rider, I also think that against a lot of the decks playing Cosmic Ghost Rider, you can just take advantage of the fact that they're playing a 5/6. Like, okay, great job turning off my Shoucasta Omega Sentinel, but I had priority and they already both went off and you played a 5/6. And it's like, oh, okay. And I think that's sort of the big level up moment with this deck where you're just like, I don't need to be comboing all the time. That's the real message I think you want to take out of this, because Shou-Lao gives you such a high floor that it's like, oh, you know, I could do this Shoucasta stuff, or I could just be a normal Shou-Lao deck. I could just like play a Shou-Lao, right? I could play a Maverick and a 1-drop on 4, and then use the Maverick on a Scarlet Spider on 5, and with another 1-drop, and then Shou-Lao the Scarlet Spider, and it's like that's still just good enough a lot of the time. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I have been KMBest. You have been phenomenal. I will see you in the next one. Remember to like and subscribe, and have a wonderful evening. Oh, stick around for the gameplay. Do that. All right. Hit a Khazar. Khazar armor? What are you? What are you? Get off the table. Seems good. Okay.
Victory.
We successfully drew Shou-Lao. This is, as always, regarded as a good move. Successfully drew Shou-Lao. Typically, this is regarded in many cases as a good move. Thinking about snapping here, but I'm feeling kind of scared. Oh, interesting. All right, I mean, let's see what's going on. I thought it was maybe good enough to snap. They're actually snapping. Let's see what the deal is. Chamber? I mean, I gotta imagine I'm just extremely chill with this.
Oh, snap.
Nice. That is sick as fuck, dog.
We
Acceptable. Acceptable. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. I heard you were on C3. No, we're off C3.
victory.
We played plenty of C3. It was acceptable. They're a Thanos deck, which means I should be concerned with potential stars dust. Some dust of stars seems like a very plausible thing to happen here. Didn't even play that. Interesting. Why wouldn't they play that? Honifer, what direction do you think we go here? My gut says this. I mean, do they run CGR is kind of the only real question here. Activate front ones in case they top deck it. I will never do such a thing. Surely. Okay. Fascinating. Oh, the Maverick's really interesting. Okay, so it is Maverick here. Activate Shoucasta, activate Omega Sentinel, activate Prodigy. Undo all of those. Maverick here, Polymorph here. Activate Shoucasta, activate Omega Sentinel, activate Prodigy. Actually, Polymorph. No, hold on. Maverick, Polymorph, activate. Kitty Pride here. Spider-Ham mid for shits. Seems okay. Don't know how it's gonna go, but hopefully we'll hit some things. Good hit. Now to go to a 4 that is better than that. Nope, it's the same, but okay. All right, Omega Sentinel hits a Mockingbird. Excellent. Shoucasta hits something. Hits something. There we go. There we go. All the Mavericks go on to a Kitty Pride. I think it's 5 Mavericks here. Bang. Bang. He knocks it down. Pretty cool things happening here, but obviously nothing outrageous just yet. This is a snap, yes? I'm gonna say it is. Horrified by whatever's going on in that Luke's bar. Whoa, Harmony Bassoon with the gifteds. Thank you so much, Mr. Bassoon. The Zola, love it.
You are mine.
Is this acceptable, Honifer? What do we think? Maybe activate Shoucasta to be safe? I don't know if that is safe. Fascinating. Okay, so it's once in future the middle. Activate Shoucasta, Omega Sentinel, Scarlet Spider. Don't play the Kitty Pride? Is that correct? Because it's only going to be 9? Oh no, Scarlet Spider, Shoucasta. Yeah, I do play the Kitty Pride. What am I talking about?
Power must be controlled.
Enchantress.
Fascinating.